It has been wonderful hearing y'all out here tonight. It's been so much fun listening to you. Appreciate the crowd, appreciate the event. Very grateful for the WL Gore for sponsoring, particularly because of their deep roots in science. I am at 34 years in AI. Many of you probably think AI just started a couple of years ago. You may have heard some rumblings about it and you didn't really think much about it, but now all of a sudden it's in your face every day. And you're starting to wonder about it. So I wanted to talk to you some about what as I've gone through a career being in AI, think about when I think about what is exciting about it, what's kind of scary about it, and what keeps me going every day, that beautiful part of AI. So I hope you feel that. I'm going to hope to nail this at about 50 minutes, so we get 25 minutes for questions instead of just 15. So think about that as I'm going through here. Make a note in your mind or on a piece of paper to figure out, hey, what do I really want to ask? You can ask me anything. Trust me, it won't surprise me at all. I'll be excited to hear what you're thinking about, and I really want to hear from you what's important and what's on your mind about that. One of the things that's up there on the slide right now says I'm an AI practitioner. And that's really important to me because while I did start out my career as a researcher, I actually have spent most of my career as a practitioner. So I never researched AI. That was never my goal. My goal was always to use the right tool for the problem. And most of the time, because of the things that I was working on, AI was that right tool. So I'm really proud that although I've been in the field for that long, it has very much been about how do we apply AI and what are some of those things that are scary about it that we need to figure out. The thing for me that I needed to figure out was explainability. So you'll hear that peppered through because when I would come up with an answer, and the computer together, we would come up with an answer for a scientist I was working with. Most of the time they would look at me and say, but why? And I wouldn't always have an answer. I'd say, well, because the machine's really smart and it figured it out and it can do a lot more calculations than I can. So that's why I got passionate about this area in AI of explainability, which we'll talk about a little bit. So this is me and one of the first machines I worked on. I started actually with an Intel Hypercube out in 89, actually 90, got admitted to the program in 89, but we actually didn't start the work until 90 with the National Science Foundation. And this was the third supercomputer I worked with, and this was in 91 out at Los Alamos. That is not at Los Alamos, that's in a museum. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of how long I've been doing this, that the computers that I worked on are in museums. I was particularly proud of this because it brings together art and science. So this was at the Modern Museum of Art in New York, and they had an exhibit on thinking machines. And it was an exhibit on design of thinking machines and the impact that machines have had on art. So it wasn't the nerdy places I normally am. It was there at the Metropolitan Museum of Art talking about the things that I really cared about. And I'll give you a secret. That computer right there, those cool lights, you might think they're actually doing something. The secret is, what they really did is they made the senators think that they were doing something, and then they provided funding because they were like, oh, it must be thinking really fast if the lights blink really fast. You could actually program them, that's the truth. One of my dear friends actually designed this. She was an industrial designer on this, and it was a black box originally. And they were like, oh, we're not going to get funding for this black box. We definitely need blinking lights. And red looks very much more energizing than other colors, so it's kind of a little menacing, but not too menacing. And so that's what they, that's why those lights are there, and they could just do nothing too. So, this is a little bit of an interactive part here, and because I've been hearing you guys so far, I need you to just yell out, just get it out. What do you think when you think AI? So when Andrew first called me about the ballet, which by the way was amazing, I said, please just don't do the Terminator. And now you see why, right? Because that's what most people think of when they think you're not alone. This is very, very normal. There's fear, right? So I actually asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, can you create a word cloud of what people think when they think AI? And by the way, I had a typo in there. It understood me, right? It didn't say, what is thing when they think AI? I kept it in, so you know. And it came up with this. I'm not sure any of you, well, you said robots, right? You didn't say a lot of these. So I said, that's interesting, but that's more kind of types and things about AI, but it's not really what people think. So I asked ChatGPT, hey, that's not really what people think, and it came back to me and said I was right. Makes me feel good, right? You're right. And so it came up with this. Bias, that's a pretty normal one that we hear. Fear is there. You can see up at the top, there's an ANXI, which I think was supposed to be anxiety, but I don't know. They got too nervous and ran away from the keyboard, which happens with AI sometimes. So I think that there wasn't a great overlap there, right? Between what you said and how you're thinking about it and what ChatGPT, what the robot actually thinks about. There's no Terminator on either of those. Robots, kind of, but the Terminator was a really different, that wasn't a robot. It's not what we think of as robots. It's interesting to me that ChatGPT hasn't felt that context of what we're feeling and what we're thinking, especially since it's fed with a lot of our society. A lot of what, you know, it knows about our movies. It knows about what our culture, what's happening in our culture, but it doesn't pull that out from there. So I then said, okay, you know, kind of give me that in an image. And I actually think the image does a better job of expressing what I heard from you all. Right? So those words that it gave us was how it felt, and I think what was closer to what you said. And my answer to that was, yikes! Except I spelled it correctly, and it didn't. I said, please give me a, you know, stamp that says yikes. And that's what it gave me. And I was like, okay, we'll spell it correctly. And then I think it got a little cheeky there down at the bottom. It's like, well, I'll spell it correctly, the big part, but I'm going to spell it the way I want it down below. And then I said, that's not quite right. So then I said, change the image again. And so if you can't see the small part there, that's what it gave me, was that other one spelled incorrectly again. And it says, here's an updated image of the word yikes with the correct spelling, not, and a white background. And I'm like, yeah, kind of white, but not totally. Styled like an ink stamp. Let me know if there's anything else you need. I was very disappointed. I have to say, I did not feel like ChatGPT was one of my best friends at that point. So let's talk about the good, because that was all meant for fun. But you also saw some of the jokes, and you probably felt about those jokes a little like I felt about my yikes stamp. Right? They're not really good, not quite right. Definitely not as good as the ballet that was driven by humans. But there are some really great things that are happening. GE reduced jet engine bore scope. I had to go look up what a bore scope was, actually. Inspection times by 30%. Because I fly a lot, I'm from Boston, so I flew out here on a jet. Jet engine inspection is actually quite important to me. And having people reduce the jet engine inspection times by 30% sounds good to me, because what I know that means is we can inspect more. Right? So we're going to get more throughput on jet engine inspection, so maybe instead of 1 in 5, I'm going to get more than that, right? That's what I want as someone who flies on this. So you can do better and more visual inspections. In particular, the bore scope is going in, and it's what it sounds like, you know, it's going into those places that humans can't get into and see quite as well. So I want AI to help me out with some of that inspection. I also want AI to do more performance evaluations. Hey, this is starting to act a little differently. There's a lot between the pilot, who, by the way, is very perceptive on this stuff, but there's still a lot between the pilot and those jet engines. And if I have a sensor on that jet engine that notices a different rattle, I actually want to know that. I want to know that before there's a problem. So all of these kinds of things, the list is long about what you can do with AI and what AI can help. One of them that I'll talk to you about, and a lot of the examples I'll give will come from my work now and what we're doing, because again, I'm passionate about the explainability part. And this is a case where we were doing some work with the Army, and the Army has simulators all across the world. Y'all probably in your ROTC program have some of the simulators that the Army keeps track of and understands their maintenance. And there's a big difference between simulators that are operated on a base and simulators that are operated in a ROTC program at a university. And usually on the base, they'll have full-time maintenance people. Usually at a university, they don't have full-time maintenance people. That's okay, that's just the condition. That's an operating condition. Sometimes the simulation system is stuck in a closet. Sometimes it takes up something as big as the stage or bigger. That's an operating condition. How much air is around something makes it different when you're talking about simulation systems. I want those simulation systems to work well. This is what's teaching our Black Hawk pilots how to fly, right? How to handle different situations. So we all want those simulation systems to work, and those operating conditions that they work under aren't always the same. So just like with your car, you know, changing your oil every 5,000 miles, I don't know what it is, sorry, I ride a bike. Let's just say it's 5,000 miles and move on. So don't laugh at me, I'm sorry. Changing your oil every 5,000 miles may not actually be the best thing for you or the car or the environment. If you can figure out the operating conditions that are really specific to your car, or in that case, as we were, specific to the environment that those simulation systems were working in, we can actually do better, more appropriate maintenance. We can have fewer failures. So the simulation systems are more accessible because we actually know the environment that they're acting under. The reason why explainability is important to that is because if I tell you to change your oil at 3,000 miles or change your oil at 10,000 miles, and you've always heard that you're supposed to change at 5,000, what do? Say the machine's wrong. Because this is what we've always done. People had to have tested that, right? They had to have figured out that 5,000 is the right number. And so to give trust, to give reasons, I need to be able to say, well, it's because this was operating in a lower airflow environment. So it needs to be able to predict because of the environment, but also explain to the human why I'm asking that human to do something different than it normally does. This is why black box AI, and I'm going to talk to you about black box AI because I promise, even with the darkest of boxes, there's actually night vision goggles. So don't believe it when people tell you that AI isn't explainable. It's more computation to actually figure out, but there actually are ways of seeing into that black box. Ours is built ground up to be explainable. But this is why it becomes important in things like this, is because people won't change the way they're doing something, even if there's advantages to it, unless they really understand why. And that's why an example here is an example of where why is really important. Not as important in some of the places, you know, the visual inspection, go in, you say, hey, there's a problem there. Someone can then go and go, okay, oh yeah, there is a problem. Yay, it found it, right? So there's barriers at different levels for explainability in different cases, but that's one where it is really important because it's a behavior change. Another example is in healthcare. Healthcare is absolutely critical, and I think just such a great place for AI. And in this case, and I heard that you all do some genomics work, and here, in this case, AI was actually helping do a blood test where the blood test is looking for DNA fragments inside the blood that are signs of lung cancer. And they're able to quadruple the lung cancer detection rates. And if you don't know, and unfortunately I've been impacted by lung cancer in my family, lung cancer is hard to catch. It's often caught at very late stages, which means that it's harder to treat. And the earlier we can catch it, the more detections we get, the more lives we can save. So this is critical areas that we have to be able to use AI safely, and actually improve healthcare and healthcare results. So diagnostic test, again, I'm not going to go through each of these. Diagnostic test, most of what you've heard of, my guess is about the scan analysis. So, oh, we're going to put all the radiologists out of business. We'll talk about that in a minute. We're not. I'm going to talk about a couple of things that I think are interesting. A good friend of mine who's working over in London, and she did research in London for the National Institutes of Health, and they did a program where what the AI did was reorder the call list for reminding people about their appointments. She said she was very embarrassed. She didn't tell her friends and family that that's what she did, but she used AI to reorder the call list. They ended up saving tens of millions of pounds just by reordering the call list. Why is that? Because they actually were able to predict who were the right people to call that were going to miss their appointment, and missed appointment cost millions and millions of pounds and dollars every year. We have a lot of AI. There's a whole group of us that are like, oh, please make AI boring again. It was so much more fun when people just didn't expect amazing things from AI, that they would just be like, oh, you reorder call list, that's fun. And we were all like, yeah. Look at all the money I saved, yeah. Look at how much more efficient I made the healthcare system. And it was just fun. And now everybody has, in my opinion, these outside expectations that it's going to fix everything. It's going to solve every version of cancer that's out there. And I think we'll get there, but we also need to find and value things like, hey, if I just reorder a call list, I'm not asking anyone to do anything differently. All I'm doing is prioritizing differently. And I've just saved millions of dollars, but more importantly, I didn't mess up other people's days because the people showed up for their appointments. The other thing I want to talk about is this, and you saw it in the ballet, right? You saw AI helping. You had AI helpers. It's been proven time and again. It's been proven in call centers. It's been proven in medical environments. AI can help non-specialists improve their skills. Sepsis is one big killer in hospitals. We already know that AI can help us detect it, and it doesn't take a sepsis specialist. We can have the AI enabling many people, the clinical people in the hospital, to save lives because they're able to detect sepsis sooner. So huge benefits that we can do by just giving more tools to the right people at the right time. To have those AI helpers when we need them, noticing things that I'm not necessarily trained to do, but when someone points it out to me, I do see that. Actually, that does make sense. Now I'm going to react differently, and I'm going to be able to get someone on a better healthcare track. You also hear a lot about creativity in AI, that AI is going to kill our creativity, right? Actually, these are stories. I put a picture up here because reading the story isn't quite as fun, and you need a little bit of context. I'll explain the picture in a minute. But there's been tests, many different tests about creative writing. And this is actually people that were experts in creative writing. They used AI as experts on their stories, and their stories scored 8% higher in novelty, experts in creative AI and creative writing, and 9% higher for usefulness. The people who weren't experts in creative writing actually had higher scores. So it does help experts and non-experts alike if they're using the tools. I'm going to tell you when you need to be careful about it, though. So just wait. I'm not just coming on here to tell you AI is amazing, because we're going to get to it. So writing aids, design aids, idea generation, you guys, if you're sparring with AI, getting more AI, experience boost that I've talked about already, guideline fits, again, I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But it can drive both sides of this. This picture actually came from Brickworld, which is a Lego enthusiast site. And this was about this. One person said immediately, oh, I'm buying that as soon as it's there. So it was a design aid, right, to make something that someone loved. It did. It was a better Lego design. Well, it was AI generated. So the next person said, can we please not post that poop here? I don't want to see things that aren't real. I don't want to see things that can't be created. You probably noticed now we're going to transition into some of the bad side. So I've told you about some of the good side. Let's talk about this bad side. This is poop, right? It's poop because it can't be created. Maybe we'll figure out how to create it. There's a lot of new tools out there in 3D printing that we could actually probably do things that we couldn't do before. So maybe this image gives Legos some new ideas about where they could focus. So that brings us to the bad. I do like Legos, so you're going to see a few more here. This was, and I don't understand this because I'm not in this community. Although I do love Legos, this is not my Lego community. But what happened here is apparently these generations of these Lego characters were offensive to the type of people that love this Lego type. Apparently they would never want to be a chef. That was a big deal. That was extraordinarily, they were like, if you know anything about this character, they would never want to be a chef, which I found fascinating. But what that is it's out of character, right? So AI doesn't always create things within the character that we expect. We're not good. Remember I talked about guidelines? We're not good about giving AI those guidelines and those barriers. It's hard to hold it back because what we've told it to do is go be creative. And so now how do we marry that be creative but only so creative, right? Follow guidelines, understand my characters more, but don't take them out of character. And how do you do that? How do you explain that to the AI? That's where we haven't spent as much time as AI researchers and AI developers, is really marrying the do's and the don'ts. So we have a guidelines mess. We also have things like too much confidence. So, and this is what I'm going to ask you all to do. Don't trust AI so much. Be skeptical. That's going to be one of your superpowers with AI, is being skeptical. That doesn't mean you say no to everything either. But you kind of go back and forth with it, and you understand, how does it know that? What was your source for that? Then go look at the sources. It will make up sources. Go and look and make sure they're there. It's going to sound very authoritative because we think computers are authorities. Computers are smarter than us, right? That's what we've been taught. It's not quite the case. As you've seen hopefully here, it's not quite the case that computers are smarter than us. They think differently than us. They do compute. And we don't compute as well as they do, but we conceptualize a lot better than they do. We also understand concept boundaries, like what a character would do and what it wouldn't do. And we know when to do something like, yeah, but I'm going to make it out of character on purpose. And trust me, an ad for Legos was not the right place to be out of character. People did not like that. They were very angry. And sometimes it can just be wrong too. So don't, if you don't know, in chess, when Deep Blue won the famous chess, and I'm totally spacing. Which one? No, it wasn't. It was Kasparov. Thank you. It was Kasparov. When Deep Blue and Kasparov played, sorry, complete brain miss. In Deep Blue, it was from IBM built Deep Blue. Kasparov actually lost because of a bug in the AI. So what happened is the AI made a move that Kasparov thought was right. He was like, it wouldn't have done something stupid. It actually was a move at random because the machine didn't know what to do. So the machine moved at random. Kasparov was convinced that the machine knew what it was doing, completely got him off his game, and that's how he lost. And this has all been written up. You can go check my sources, I promise. It's been written up in Wired. Kasparov himself has said it. The Deep Blue people has confirmed that it was a bug that they went and fixed, by the way, but didn't tell him it was a bug. Got him off his game, and he lost because he was trying to figure out what that move was. It knows something that I don't. The machine doesn't always know something you don't. So does anyone recognize this video? It was from a couple of years ago. This is when they trained AI to watch a soccer ball. Yeah. Didn't do so well, did it? I know, it's one of my favorites. It just makes me happy to watch it. I'm sure they trained it a lot. They spent a bunch of time. But it got distracted. We need to understand AI can be wrong. But what people in AI tell us is more data will solve that. Surely that was just on a small data set. So this is when Google, just recently, this is, what, 6 months ago when they launched Gemini, okay, so wait a second, I have to take a break until I see younger people out here. Does anybody know how to explain a camera? We used to have these things. So that black thing up there was a camera. It wasn't part of your phone. It's actually a different device. And we put film in it. You don't know what film is. I'm old. But if you put this film in it, and you actually expose that film to light, it ruined all your pictures. So it's kind of like dropping your phone and cracking it, and you never can get the pictures back if you didn't back them up. It was that kind of thing, right? So in their ad, which I just find it hilarious that in the launch of their ad, they were showing someone a camera, but okay. So the question to Google was, in their ad, why is the lever not moving? And if you ever had a camera, you know this happened all the time. And so it's helpfully suggested to do these things. Now, there's one that I'm circling that I've kind of given you already. The problem with it, it says open the back door and, you know, gently remove the film. You've just exposed all of your, it didn't give you any context, right? It didn't say go crawl under a table, which is what we used to do. You know, get where I had the least amount of light, put my hair around it, you know, hope that I wasn't exposing my film, because this did happen on a regular basis. It didn't tell me any of that. It didn't tell me, is there a dark room near? Okay, you may do this, but you're going to expose all your camera, and you're going to have to go back to where you started and retake those pictures. Told me none of that. Now, do I believe that this was a very popular answer for fixing the fact that my lever wouldn't use? Absolutely. That was said a ton in all the mountains of data that they had. It was statistically, that was a great answer. It's a horrible answer out of context. Out of the context of a dark room and the context of destroying your film. And that's what we're missing. More data doesn't solve the problem, because we're not saving the context that these answers are given in. We weren't saving the context of a bald ref. That's context. We have to think of how these tools are going to be used and the context in which they're being used. Okay, so how do you help us figure this out? I'm going to tell you 3 different parts of AI that are absolutely critical. Most people think of AI only as the algorithm, but there's actually 3 things. The first one I'll talk about is the algorithm. I call that the chicken. So the chicken, there's tons of algorithms out there. There are a bunch. So if someone tells you I'm using this algorithm instead of this one because it's better, ask them why. Why is it better? What makes you think that? What has it been tested on? What has it been trained on? I mean, all of these questions about the algorithm. There's also, as I said I would allude to later, a bunch of ways to find out how explainable is this model. And that's one that most people don't ask. So I'm telling you an insider secret. You now know you can actually ask that. Is that explainable? And you can tell them that they can go find out whether their AI, what they've chosen, has a better or worse chance of being explainable. So that's one thing to ask. The other thing to ask is what data was used to train that algorithm. Now, maybe pre-trained. So the LLMs that drive ChatGPT, those come pre-trained, and then you do something to specialize them. I'm not going to go into that nerdy stuff right now, but that's what you do. And so this is an example of using an LLM. This is a parcel delivery company that put out a chatbot to help their customers. And someone quickly said that, you know, they had a chat with this robot thing, and they got it to cuss. They got it to say that this is the worst company they've ever worked with. And the person had a ball doing this, right? But it was shut down pretty quickly, as you can imagine. So you have to, and they put guardrails in there. They very proudly announced this and said, no, we've made it really particular this. You're not going to be, I promise you, if it's on the internet, someone is going to break it. And be more prepared for how you react to that breakage than how much time you spend trying to protect from it, because someone will do it, I promise. This is the biggest one, and this is the one where you all can have the most impact. Asking questions on the other two is important, but this is the one that you all are most important for. So you all, I imagine, are also very familiar with the Uber self-driving car incident. Killed someone. What they said is it was a software bug. In reality, it wasn't the AI software that had a bug. The AI sensors, that's where the AI was in the sensors. The AI sensors, actually two different ones that were in the car, actually both identified her and identified her as a person or possible person. This is all kind of probability based. But they had disabled the software, said, don't listen to it unless it had this much confidence and had this much time. Because what was happening is they were getting too many false positives. And what a false positive meant in that case is a jerky drive, right? Because the car was braking too often. And the people that were in charge of that said, well, no one's going to take this ride if they're constantly being jerked around. So they made an objective decision to not have a jerky drive, to disable those sensors in certain conditions. They listened to them sometimes and not every time. That was an objective. That was not actually a software bug. Yes, it was written in the software to ignore it. That wasn't a software bug. Actually, the software system was working as designed because people disabled the ability of the system to alert, all because of a jerky drive. All of you sitting in the room need, when these decisions are made, need to ask these questions. Well, wait. I get not having a jerky drive. Totally understand. The AI isn't good enough to not give us false positives. I get that part. Where is it good? And where do we need to be better about not making these bad trade-offs? That's where you all can have an impact. He called it stupidity. I actually don't think it's stupidity, I'll be honest. I think it's just because most people trust the engineers. They trust the AI. They trust that we're making those decisions. I need you all to challenge that. When he says stupidity, he's saying something like that. In hindsight, that decision about a non-jerky ride seems really stupid. But when it was happening, because our objective was to get those cars out there, it didn't feel like a stupid decision. So think about that as you're in conversations, as you hear AI talked about. Who's been in the room? Have other people other than the engineers and the people in the room that really want to get this technology out said, whoa, wait a minute? And this is why I think AI and broad AI education, which is why I'm happy to be here tonight. I hope that I've taught you a few things. I've made you think about AI differently than you did, even if you get like the chicken, eggs, and bacon part, right? Like you can go, I know the 3 key parts of AI. It's chicken, egg, and bacon. It's easy to remember, right? Chicken's my algorithm, eggs are my data. Because that came from which came first? Because people ask me that all the time. Do I start with an algorithm or do I start with data? And I'm like, it's really a chicken and egg problem. But the bacon is really what's most important. What is our objective? So always remember that. That's where most of the stupidity occurs. And it's because more people aren't involved, because they think that they don't know enough about AI. Hopefully I've convinced you that you can have a say in AI. I don't want to not talk about jobs, though. So the important thing, too many people, well, sorry, I shouldn't say that. Many people are saying that we're going to cause job loss with AI. This is Eric, and his last name is, I can't pronounce, it starts with a B, and it's very long, but he's a professor at MIT, now Stanford. He just moved from MIT to Stanford. Great guy, fantastic. And he's one that really, like, if you ever want to read about work in AI, just go read Eric's stuff, because it's absolutely terrific, and all the research behind it and everything. I have a nuanced difference with him on this. I've talked to him about it, so we're very friendly about it. He really believes that AI, because of that throughput increase, like I said, because we can inspect more jet engines, because we can look at more radiology exams, and this is the example. This is how much jobs have actually gone up in radiology, and he tracks that to AI. And it's because AI has increased our throughput, because we can do more of these radiology exams. We need more radiologists. The AI doesn't do it alone. It does it in partnership. Again, as you saw in the ballet, it does it in partnership. So we actually needed more radiologists. I actually believe that that's true, that many things will become more optimal, so we'll actually have more throughput, we'll need more people. But I think there'll be a leveling off, and the places where they're decreased will be kind of hidden, and we've had this happen before with manufacturing. It goes slowly, and we don't react enough. So the one thing I'd ask is to be aware and think about, okay, these jobs will speed up because we have more throughput, and that's good, and we will hire more radiologists, and we'll probably hire more jet engine inspectors. But where are the places where that's not true? And I think we need to think through that and really be aware of where that balance is, because overall, I think it's going to be a huge impact, and absolutely agree with Eric on that. But there are going to be pockets that we need to pay more attention to. So welcome to this age of AI questioning. I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but this is what I'm dealing with almost on a daily basis. I read a headline about AI, and on the one hand, I go, ooh, this could be really great. And on the other hand, I go, and it could be really bad because of our bias and ethics and problems that this could be repeating bad mistakes that we've done. The biggest thing for me is this last one that says large language models are a mirage. The benefits are a mirage. Sorry, you can't read that really well, but skepticism, I think, is the best thing out there. I hope you're seeing that. If you see an AI headline about how AI is changing the world, have a little bit of skepticism there as to how much it's really changing it and what it means and who it means that for. So what is the beautiful? The beautiful to me is that subject matter experts are now able to use this tool. They can actually use them without somebody like me who really understands the depth of the AI. They can take it, and I don't want to say that they're better tools, and honestly, some of these aren't new. Many of the algorithms that we're working on, I mean, these neural nets that are being used, there's some tweaks to them, but honestly, it's the same as what I was working with more than 30 years ago. I'm very excited about the advances there, don't get me wrong, but they're also not that different. So these aren't even really new tools. A lot of these have been used for years. There are people, they're known and understand. They're just more broadly available. So people being able to so explainable AI, as you know, big passion of mine. What I love about this one with the drug discovery is they're looking for basically subcomponents of drugs, and they're basically saying, how does this subcomponent act on these diseases? And that needs explainability, as you can imagine, because it's looking at a subcomponent, which thing does this piece of this drug have an interaction on? Really key to have explainability in that case. And so now I can take these pieces and think of them as Lego blocks and actually accelerate drug discovery. I know you all, I'm going to point out the drones, AI, and the DNA. Actually, and I'll talk about all three of these, so three of the others. Learning, because we're here at a university, I do think learning is going to have AI is going to have a huge impact on learning. But it's not because of the tool and how it's being used now. I actually think it's the personalization capabilities. So really that ability to build and enhance a course in areas that I'm particularly struggling or accelerating. So that ability to take a course that we know what the coursework is, but really make it personalized to me. That's what I'm excited about, and that's what Khan is doing a lot of work. If you know Khan Academy, Khan's doing a lot of work in personalization. I'm excited about that because I trust them and I trust their approach to the technology, and they're testing a lot of personalized education work. The Great Barrier Reef, I know you all, I learned actually since being here that you all do a lot in climate change. This is all about how climate is impacting the barrier reef and how we can monitor and understand that. I think climate is there's a huge area of impact that we can do with AI on the climate crisis. So I think it's going to be one of the keys to solving some of the climate, not that we can solve it all, but some of the climate crisis. I think AI has a big area there. And then the last one is just nerdy for any nerd out there. This is the biggest thing for me, which is this is all systems of systems. So how I think about adding all of these things together rather than just one area. I'm really excited about this, and it's not easy. It's a very, very complex problem. You don't think you're an expert, but you are. You're an expert in many things. It may be just an expert in how you learn. You learn differently than everybody else. So you going in and using these tools and figuring out how it can enhance the way you learn, don't think that you aren't an expert, because I promise you there's something you're an expert in. And you're just going to keep on building that expertise. So when you hear something like, I think, and many people think that these are tools for the subject matter experts, don't discount yourself. You are the subject matter expert. And there are many, many guardians out there. So this is why what I think is beautiful about AI is that although I think the AI proponents, the bombastic people out there, make a lot of noise, it's the guardians that protect us. This is a place that most people don't know about. These are the, I think this is like the algorithmic justice league. These are people that are just having people report AI and automation controversies and incidents. I go and look at it all the time because of the black box nature. So that's what I'm doing all of the time, is figuring out what's going on with black box AI and how can we help solve it. These people are out there, they're researching it, I contribute, I research, I try and help them find places where this is happening and what the impact of black box is. And by the way, just look over here. When you talk about black box and people say, oh, but more data will solve it, these companies have access to all of that data. This is not about getting more data and solving the problem. This really is about transparency and how it got to the answer, not just add more data and it'll be better. These folks have some of the best AI researchers in the world working for them. And they're still having these major, major incidents. So how are you best a superhero? You know this now, just take a second look. I don't know if you remember, this went viral, like, oh my gosh, we're in an age where we're going backwards and we're having smoking in McDonald's. Now look at this. Look at his hands. Hands are a telltale sign for AI. Like, his hands are totally weird. And who has a shirt like that? His shirt, he has sleeves, but he has no neckline. I mean, it's just like, and then look at, like, that's not Coca-Cola. Like, it doesn't say Coca-Cola. But this went like wildfire around the web. It spread so quickly where people were like, this is awful. People are smoking at McDonald's. was AI generated. Take the second look. Whenever you feel, use that as a trigger. Whenever you feel like this is the worst thing that could happen, it's possible it was AI generated. Take those second looks now. And I love this happened actually around April Fool's Day, and I did love this person said, you know, it's the one day of the year when people critically evaluate news articles. I just want to ask you, treat most days these days as April Fool's Day, because they're trying to trick you. Like, they want you to react like that. They want you to forward that. People that are creating this are doing it on purpose. And this election season, they're doing it more. And they know they can. And by the way, they are micro-targeting you. They are using AI to specifically show you something that makes your blood pressure go up. So when your blood pressure goes up, immediately say, who the heck knows me so well that they sent me something like that to make my blood pressure go up? So, in closing, we're close. I ask you to think about artificial intelligence like artificial light. It's done a lot of things for us, right? It's allowed us to navigate, that's city navigation patterns, cities. We have lights in our cities, we can get around, that's great. It's allowed us to discover, right? So we see new worlds that we couldn't see before, but it's also allowed us to work longer hours. That's not a great thing. It's impacted migratory patterns, that artificial light. So it hasn't been all good. And think about that. Artificial intelligence, there's a lot of great things it can do, but we also have to think about the bad side. The biggest thing I'll tell you is it didn't replace the sun. We've got natural intelligence, and I know how this stuff works. It doesn't work like we do. Can we continue to improve it to make it interesting? Sure. And we're going to continue to improve ourselves, and it ain't got nothing on us. And I actually think the real sun is better. And it's actually really beautiful here. So, thank you all. We're going to open it up to questions. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I hope you had fun.